A viral post has been going around claiming a 12-year-old girl built a $23 million fortune and then retired, while other kids her age were still worrying about homework. It sounds almost too clean to be true, the kind of story that gets reposted a million times because it's inspiring and a little unbelievable at the same time. So we actually dug into it. Who is this kid? Is the number real? And what actually happened when a 9-year-old side project turned into a business serious enough that her family called it quits at the top? By the end of this, you'll know exactly which parts of the viral version are true, which parts are exaggerated, and the one detail almost nobody mentions that changes how you should really read this story. Her name is Pixie Curtis, born in 2011 in Sydney, Australia. Her mother is Roxy Jasenko, a well-known Australian businesswoman who built her own public relations empire from scratch and has spent years as one of the country's most recognizable entrepreneurs. That detail matters more than it might seem right now, so keep it in mind, because we're coming back to it. Growing up, Pixie was constantly around business conversations, brand launches, and a mother who treated entrepreneurship like a normal part of daily life instead of some distant adult concept. Most 9-year-olds grow up watching cartoons talk about business. Pixie grew up watching her own house run like one. Around 2021, when Pixie was 9 years old, she and her mother launched a small online store together, starting with hair accessories and bows. It wasn't framed as some grand business plan. It was closer to a fun mother-daughter project, the kind of thing plenty of parents do with their kids, except this family had an actual audience and marketing instincts most small businesses spend years trying to build. The first product line sold out within 48 hours. For a brand new store with basically no track record, that's an unusually fast signal that they'd found real demand, not just a one-off lucky sale. To understand why this business grew so fast, you have to understand Roxy Jasenko, not just as Pixie's mom, but as one of Australia's most aggressive self-made entrepreneurs in her own right. Years before Pixie was born, Jasenko built a public relations agency called Sweaty Betty PR from essentially nothing into a multi-million-dollar company, working with major fashion and beauty brands and becoming a genuine media figure herself. She's known for blunt, high-energy marketing instincts and for treating publicity like a science, not a guessing game. When a 9-year-old with a hair accessories store has a mother with that exact skill set sitting at the kitchen table, the store sold out in 48 hours, stops sounding like beginner's luck, and starts sounding like exactly what you'd expect. Not long after, during a period when fidget spinners were surging back into popularity, Pixie and her mother pivoted the store to sell them. This is the moment the story stops being a cute side hustle and starts becoming an actual business. Demand exploded almost immediately. Reports at the time said the fidget spinner line alone pulled in around $200,000 in its very first month. That's not birthday money numbers. That's the kind of first-month revenue plenty of adult-run startups never come close to hitting. It's worth understanding why fidget spinners specifically were such a goldmine to pivot into. They first exploded into a worldwide craze years earlier, one of those rare toy trends that went from completely unknown to sold in every gas station and school hallway on the planet within months. That first wave faded, the way every viral toy trend eventually does, but the appetite for cheap, simple, impulse-buy toys never fully disappeared, and later waves of demand kept surfacing, including a fresh resurgence during the pandemic years when kids were stuck at home and parents were actively looking for anything to hand them. Jumping into that demand with a brand that already had an engaged following wasn't a random bet. It was timing a proven trend with an audience that was already primed to buy. As the business matured, multiple reports at its peak cited Pixie's company pulling in more than $133,000 a month. Keep in mind, revenue and personal fortune are two very different things. One is what a business brings in. The other is what's actually left over and belongs to a person once every cost is paid. That distinction gets blurred constantly in viral posts, and it's exactly why the $23 million number needs a closer look before we just accept it. This is exactly the kind of confusion that turns a real business into an unbelievable viral headline. So let's make it simple. Revenue is the total money coming in the door before anything is paid out, say $133,000 in a month. Profit is what's actually left after paying for the product, the shipping, the ads, and everything else. And it's almost always a fraction of that top number, sometimes 20 or 30% if a business is running well, sometimes far less. Valuation is a completely different animal. It's an estimate, usually made by multiplying yearly profit or revenue by some number reflecting how fast a business is growing and how much someone might theoretically pay to own it outright. None of that estimated valuation is sitting in a bank account. A business can be worth $20 million on paper and still have almost nothing in actual cash reserves. which is exactly why the $23 million headline and the money in the bank idea people picture when they read it are two very different things. Here's the part almost nobody checks. If you actually search for reporting on this story, you'll find the estimated value of the business landing anywhere from around $13 million in some reports up to over $21 million in others, depending on which outlet, which year, and which valuation method they used. $23 million is within that range, but it's on the high end, not some universally agreed upon figure. This isn't a scam or a lie. Business valuations for a fast-growing brand genuinely can swing that wildly, depending on who's estimating and when. But it does mean the exact number in that viral post is closer to an optimistic estimate than a confirmed bank balance. And that nuance almost never survives the repost. In 2023, at 12 years old, Pixie stepped back from the business to focus on her education, and the family reportedly threw an actual retirement-themed party to mark the moment, complete with the kind of milestone celebration usually reserved for someone finishing a 40-year career. Not long after, the family relocated, with reports placing Pixie starting the next chapter of school in Singapore. On the surface, that's a genuinely rare thing. A business hitting real momentum, and the people running it choosing to step away deliberately instead of chasing it forever. Here's the detail that changes how you should actually read this whole story. Pixie was 9, 10, 11 years old while this business ran. Legally and practically, a child that age cannot sign supplier contracts, run advertising accounts, manage logistics, or handle the financial and legal side of an actual company. Her mother, Roxy Jacenko, an experienced entrepreneur who had already built her own multi-million-dollar PR agency years before Pixie was even born, was the adult actually operating the machinery behind the brand. That doesn't make the story fake. Pixie really was the face, the name, and by every account, a genuinely engaged young business mind who cared about the product and the brand. But a 12-year-old built a $23 million empire alone, and a child fronted a business her highly experienced entrepreneur mother built and ran alongside her, are two very different stories, and only one of them is what actually happened. None of this means the story is worthless or that Pixie deserves no credit. Plenty of kids grow up around wealth and business and never absorb a single real lesson from it. By every account, Pixie was genuinely hands-on, approving products, learning what customers responded to, and picking up business instincts most adults never develop at all, let alone by age 11. The real takeaway isn't any kid can build a multi-million-dollar company alone. It's that growing up around real business thinking, instead of being shielded from it, gives a kid a head start most people never get. And that head start is worth more long-term than the exact size of any number in a viral post. Pixie isn't some 1 in a billion anomaly either. There's a small but real pattern of kid-led brands built with heavy parental involvement turning into genuine businesses. A young entrepreneur in the United States built a lemonade brand around a family honey recipe that eventually landed a real retail deal with a major chain. Another built a bow tie company from his bedroom that got picked up by national retailers while he was still in elementary school. In every single one of these stories, when you actually look past the headline, there's an experienced, connected adult in the background doing the parts a child legally and practically can't do. That's not a scandal. It's just how these stories always work, and it's exactly the piece that gets cut out every time one gets turned into a 3-sentence viral caption. If you're a parent, the takeaway isn't start a company for your 9-year-old. It's that involving kids in real decisions, even small ones, budgeting and allowance, understanding what something actually costs to make versus sell, seeing a parent negotiate or plan, builds financial instincts that most adults are still trying to learn for the first time in their 30s. If you're not a parent, the lesson still applies to you directly. The earlier you actually understand how money, pricing, and demand work, instead of just working for a paycheck and hoping it works out, the more time compounds in your favor. Pixie didn't get that head start by accident. She got it because someone treated business as something a kid could be part of instead of something to learn about later. And here's the part that applies no matter how old you are right now. Nobody hands you that education by default. School teaches you plenty of subjects, but understanding what something costs to make, what people will actually pay for it, and how to tell real profit from a big, scary, or impressive sounding number, that's rarely taught anywhere on purpose. You either pick it up early because someone puts you next to it, the way Pixie was, or you pick it up the slow way, later in life, usually after a few expensive mistakes. Either way, it's learnable starting today, at any age, and that's the actual takeaway worth keeping from this story, not the exact size of the number in the headline. So the honest version of this story, real kid, Real business, real momentum. A valuation that's genuinely impressive, but almost certainly inflated by the time it turns into a viral caption, and a mother with serious entrepreneurial experience doing most of the heavy lifting behind the scenes. That's a more complicated story than the one-paragraph repost, but it's a more useful one, because it actually tells you what's replicable and what isn't. If you want more stories like this, the real numbers behind viral claims, no hype, subscribe, because we're breaking down exactly how money and business actually work, one real story at a time.